Hi, I'm Emma Weber. I'm the Historical Clothing and Textiles Supervisor at Plymouth Patuxet Museums, and this summer we are honored to have as our intern.
Hi, I'm Emma Stewart. I'm the Historical Clothing and Textiles intern here at Plymouth Patuxet.
So today we are going to talk about late 17th century dress. The museum is embarking on a project to tell the story of widow and businesswoman Elizabeth Warren, as well as the events that happened post-1620 in the kind of tumultuous later period of Plymouth Colony. And as you can imagine, that's necessitated a lot of research to get us from our 1620s clothing that we currently use to our 1670s, 80s, and early 90s clothing. So we've decided to focus on the Mantua to put our research into practice. We have draped a wealthy woman's Mantua over here, so this is a mock-up. And today, what will we be doing, Emma?
Today, in front of the public, we're going to be draping a working woman's Mantua. While silhouettes change quite a bit between the 1620s and 1670s, they also kind of stay the same. I know that's a little contradictory, but clothing was one of the most expensive things people owned other than land, which for many of the pilgrims wasn't possible until they came to the United States, or what would become the United States. And so we see in wills that their clothing is up to half of their total net worth, and even more before you count in their land. So they had clothing that was still from earlier styles and earlier decades, but they also were taking that clothing and adapting it to new shapes and new styles. And so one of the really important new styles we see is the Mantua. The Mantua came about in the early 1670s, really. That's really unique about the Mantua compared to earlier garments is rather than being flat patterned on a table and cutting out your pattern pieces, it's actually draped directly on the body so that it kind of fits the person exactly to their measurements and to what their body is like on the day it gets draped. And because of that, it can take a while to kind of get the pleats right. It's a garment that heavily relies on pleating for its shape, since you're not cutting small pieces and using seams for that.
So Emma, can you talk me through the evolution of the Mantua as a garment, where it came from, where it ended, and how women got involved in the commercial sewing world because of it?
Of course. So the Mantua is based on the Japanese kimono, as well as other imports from the relationship between Europe and Asia. And from the kimono, it started to become sort of like a house coat. So a woman could wear it over her stays and her shift, but it was really for that private sphere of the home. It was too casual to be worn in public at that point. And because it was both a casual garment and because of its basis in the kimono, it was very geometric with kind of rectangular and triangular patterns. It was made by seamstresses rather than tailors. So at this point, being a tailor is a solely male profession, and women were not allowed into the tailors' guilds, and it was really, women were seamstresses. They made clothing for the household. So because it had that kind of simple silhouette, it was made by these women. And then it kind of evolved from a house coat to more of an overdress, and it was like casual wear in public. But because it had started as a seamstress's job to make, they kind of retained that field. And as the Mantua continued to evolve into a popular fashionable piece of outerwear, these seamstresses continued to be the ones to make it. And it enabled a lot of women to start their own businesses. And in fact, in 1675, King Louis XIV created the first seamstresses guild, specifically inspired by Mantua makers, so that they could kind of get together and build up their shared knowledge.
And what did tailors think of this? How did they react to, we've got these very well-established tailors guilds, for hundreds of years. What did they think about women coming onto the scene and kind of cutting a slice of the pie for themselves?
Tailors were not super happy when these seamstresses guilds started to be established, but at the point that they were being established, it was kind of too late. The tailors had thought the Mantua would be a passing fad. They didn't really fight it so much at the beginning, and by the time it became a really entrenched silhouette, women were used to going and maybe more comfortable to go to their mantua makers and seamstresses rather than a tailor.